My first interview with the alien. You are listening to Matilda O'Donnell MacElroy personal note. By the time the alien had been returned to the base, I had already spent several hours with her. As I mentioned, Mr. Cavett told me to stay with the alien, since I was the only person among us who could understand her communication. I could not understand my ability to communicate with the being. I had never before that time experienced telepathic communication with anyone. The non-verbal communication I experienced was like the understanding you might have when a child or a dog is trying to get you to understand something, but much, much more direct and powerful. Even though there were no words spoken or signs made, the intention of the thoughts were unmistakable to me. I realized later that, although I received the thought, I did not necessarily interpret its meaning exactly. I think that the alien being was not willing to discuss technical matters, due to the nature of her position as an officer and pilot with the duty to maintain the security and confidentiality required by her own unit or organization. Any soldier who is captured by the enemy in the line of duty has a responsibility to withhold vital information, even in the face of interrogation or torture, of course. But, in spite of that, I have always felt that the alien being was not really trying to hide anything from me. I just never got that feeling. Her communication always seemed honest and sincere to me. But, I suppose you can never know for sure. I definitely feel that I shared a unique bond with the alien. It was a kind of trust or empathy that you have with a patient or a child. I think this is because the alien could understand that I was really interested in her, and had no harmful intention, nor would I allow any harm to come to her, if I could prevent it. This was true too. I refer to the alien as her. Actually, the being was not sexual in any way, either physiologically or psychologically. She did have a rather strong, feminine presence and demeanor. However, in terms of physiology, the being was asexual, and had no internal or external reproductive organs. Her body was more like the body of a doll or robot. There were no internal organs, as the body was not constructed of biological cells. It did have a kind of circuit system or electrical nervous system that ran throughout the body, but I could not understand how it worked. In stature and appearance, the body was quite short and petite, about 40 inches tall. The head was disproportionately large, relative to arms, legs and torso, which were thin. There were 3 fingers, on each of 2 hands, and feet, which were somewhat prehensile. The head had no operational nose, or mouth, or ears. I understood that a space officer does not need these as space has no atmosphere to conduct sound. Therefore, sound-related sensory organs are not built into the body. Nor does the body need to consume food, hence, the absence of a mouth. The eyes were quite large. I was never able to determine the exact degree of visual acuity of which the eyes were capable, but I observed that her sense of sight must have been extremely acute. I think the lenses of the eyes, which were very dark and opaque, may also have been able to detect waves or particles beyond the visual spectrum of light. I suspect that this may have included the full range of the electromagnetic spectrum, or more, but I do not know this for sure. When the being looked at me, her gaze seemed to penetrate right through me, as though she had X-ray vision. I found this a little embarrassing, at first, until I realized that she had no sexual intentions. In fact, I don't think she ever even had the thought that I was male or female. It became very obvious after a short time with the being that her body did not require oxygen, food or water, or any other external source of nutrition or energy. As I learned later, this being supplied her own energy, which animated and operated the body. It seemed a little bit eerie at first, but I got used to the idea. It's really a very, very simple body. There is not much to it, compared to our own bodies. Elle explained to me that it was not mechanical, like a robot, nor was it biological. Is animated directly by her as a spiritual being. Technically, from a medical standpoint, I would say that Elle's body could not even be called alive. Her doll body is not a biological life form, with cells, and so forth. It had a smooth skin, or covering which was gray in color. The body was highly tolerant to changes in temperature, atmospheric conditions, and pressure. The limbs were quite frail, without musculature. In space there is no gravity, so very little muscle strength is needed. The body was used almost entirely on spacecraft or in low, or no gravity environments. Since Earth has a heavy gravity, the body was not able to walk around very well as the legs were not really suited to that purpose. The feet and hands were quite flexible and agile however. Overnight, before my first interview with the alien, the area had been transformed into a buzzing hive of activity. There were a dozen men working on setting up lights and camera equipment. A motion picture camera and microphone and a tape recorder was there also set up in the interview room. I don't understand why a microphone was needed, since there was no verbal communication possible with the alien. There was also a stenographer and several people busily typing on typewriters. I was informed that an expert foreign language interpreter and a code-breaking team had been flown to the base during the night to assist with my efforts to communicate with the alien. There were also several medical personnel, specialists in various fields, to examine the alien. And a professor of psychology was there to help formulate questions and interpret the answers. As I was just a nurse, I was not considered to be a qualified interpreter, even though I was the only one there who could understand anything the alien was thinking. There were many subsequent conversations between us. Each interview resulted in an exponential increase in understanding between us, as I will discuss later on in my notes. This is the first transcript with the answers to a list of questions provided to me by the intelligence officer at the base, which I debriefed to the stenographer immediately following the interview. Thank you for listening to Chapter 1 of the book, Alien Interview. Based on personal notes and interview transcriptions provided by Matilda O'Donnell MacElroy. This book is dedicated to all immortal spiritual beings, whether they are aware of themselves as such, or not. What is true for you, is true for you. You are free to listening to the next chapter. The letters from Mrs. MacElroy. Please subscribe Awareness Wisdom, we are grateful for that.